most powerful three words you'll ever say are not "I love you." They're not "I forgive you." They're not "I am sorry." The three words that will change everything. The three words that terrify us more than failure, more than rejection, more than death itself are "I don't know." And there's a 5,000-year-old conversation on a battlefield that proves exactly why. But we'll get to that. First, I want to talk to you. Not the version of you that shows up at work. Not the version that posts on social media. Not the version that nods confidently in meetings when your stomach is in knots. I'm talking to the real you. The one who's been carrying an answer to a question no one asked. Because admitting you don't have one feels like admitting you don't belong. You've been performing certainty like it's your job. Maybe it literally is your job. You're the one people come to for advice. You're the one who always figures it out. And somewhere along the way, that became a cage. Because now, right now, you're stuck. Really stuck. And you can't tell anyone. Because the moment you say "I don't know," you're terrified the whole thing. The respect, the trust, the identity you've built collapses. So you keep moving, keep talking, keep performing. But you're drowning, and no one can see it. Meera was 32 when her hands started shaking before investor calls. Not the first few, those were exciting. Adrenaline, ambition, the thrill of building something from nothing. Her edtech startup had been her dream since college. She'd mortgaged certainty for a vision, and for 2 years it worked. But now, 18 months past their Series A, the numbers were bleeding. User growth had flatlined. 2 of her best engineers had quietly updated their LinkedIn profiles. And every Monday morning, her team of 23 people looked at her across the conference table with the same unspoken question: "Do you know what you're doing?" And every Monday morning, Meera smiled, pulled up her slides, and performed. "We're pivoting strategy. Q3 will be different. Trust the process." She said it so many times, she almost believed it. Almost. But at night, alone in her apartment, she'd sit on the bathroom floor with her laptop open to a spreadsheet that told a different story. A story of runway shrinking, of promises she couldn't keep, of a version of herself she'd invented, a fearless founder, unshakable, that she could no longer hold together. She didn't know what to do, but she couldn't say it, because Meera had built her entire identity on being the person who always knew. Mr. Raghavan had been her professor in business school, 67 years old, retired. He built and lost 2 companies of his own before most people understood what a startup even was. He was also one of her earliest angel investors, not because he believed in the product he'd once told her, but because he believed in the question she was trying to answer. He texted her that morning, just 4 words: "Chai, our usual place." She almost didn't go. She'd rehearsed 3 different versions of "everything's fine" on the drive over. But the moment she sat down across from him, the moment he looked at her with those quiet, undemanding eyes and said nothing, it all cracked. Meera's voice broke mid-sentence. She wasn't even sure what she was saying. Something about metrics, something about projections, and then nothing. Just tears. Right there, in a crowded chai shop, the fearless founder dissolving. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. "I have no idea what I'm doing, and I think everyone can see it except me. I'm failing, and I can't even fail honestly." Mr. Raghavan didn't flinch. He didn't offer a solution. He didn't look away. He didn't say, "It'll be okay." He smiled. Not a patronizing smile, not a pitying one, a real smile, the kind that said something important had just happened, as if he'd been waiting for this moment for a very long time. "Meera," he said quietly, "do you know what you just did?" She shook her head. "You stopped pretending. That's not weakness. That's the first real strength you've shown me in 2 years." She stared at him. "You've been fighting a war against your market, against your doubts, against your own team's expectations. And you've been fighting it with a mask on. You can't win a war you're not honest about being in." He leaned forward. "Confusion is not your enemy. Pretending you're not confused, that is your enemy. The moment you said, 'I don't know,' you didn't lose your authority, Meera. You found it. Because now we can actually begin." "There is an ancient verse," he said, stirring his chai, "about a warrior who stood in the middle of the greatest battle ever fought and said exactly what you just said. And that admission became the doorway to the most profound teaching the world has ever known." Now, hear the original Sanskrit. These are verses from the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the chapter called Sankhya Yoga, the yoga of knowledge. In these opening verses, we hear the voice of Sanjaya narrating to the blind king, then Krishna's challenge to a broken Arjuna, and then Arjuna himself, stripped bare, trembling, finally surrendering with the most powerful words a human being can speak. Sanjay Uvach, "Tam tatha kripaya vishtamashru purna kulekshanam, vishidantamidam vakyam uvach madhusudana." Shri Bhagavan Uvach, "Kutastva kashmalamidam vishame samupasthitam, anarya jushtama swargyamakirtikaram Arjun, klebhyam masmagamah partha naitattvayupapadyate, kshudram hriday dorbalyam tyaktvottishth parantap." Arjuna Uvach, "Katham bhishmamaham sankhe dronam cha madhusudan, ishubhe pratiyotsyami pujarha varisudan, guru nahatva hi mahanubhavan, shreyo bhoktum bhaikshyamapi haloke, hatvartha kamanstu guru niheva, bhunjiya bhogan rudhir pradigdhan, na chaitadvidmah kataranno gariyo, yadva jayem yadi va no jayeyo, यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामस, ते वस्थिताः प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्रा, कार्पण्य दोषोपहत स्वभाव, पृच्छामि त्वां धर्म सम्मूढ़ चेता, यच्छ्रेयः स्यान् निश्चितं ब्रूहि, तन्मे शिष्यस्तेहं शाधिमां त्वां प्रपन्नम्, न हि प्रपश्यामि ममापनुद्याद्, यच्छोकमुच्छोषणमिन्द्रियाणाम्, अवाप्य भूमावस्पत्नमृद्धम्, राज्यम सुराणामपि चाधिपत्यम." संजय उवाच, "एवमुक्त्वा ऋषिकेशं गुडाकेशः परन्तप, न योत्स्य इति गोविन्द मुक्त्वा तूष्णीं बभूवः। तमुवाच ऋषिकेशः प्रहसन्नीव भारत, सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये विषीदन्तमिदं वचः." Here is what these sacred words mean. Sanjay tells the blind king, seeing Arjun overcome with pity, his eyes brimming with tears, lost in despair, Krishna spoke these words. And Krishna's first words are not gentle, they are a challenge. He says, "Where has this weakness come from, Arjuna, at this critical hour? This is unworthy of a noble man. It will not lead to glory. It will not lead to heaven. It brings only disgrace. Do not yield to cowardice, O son of Pritha. It does not suit you. Cast off this petty weakness of heart and arise, O scorcher of enemies." But Arjuna cannot simply arise. His anguish is real. He cries out, "How can I raise my arrows against Bhishma, who held me on his lap as a child? Against Drona, who placed the first bow in my hands? It would be better to live as a beggar in this world than to feast on pleasures stained with their blood. We don't even know which is better, he says, whether we conquer them or they conquer us. Standing right before us are the sons of Dhritarashtra, and killing them would drain all will to live. And then, the most important moment, verse 7, Arjuna says, "My very nature is overcome by weakness and confusion. My mind cannot see what is right. I am asking you, tell me with certainty what is truly good for me. I am your student. I surrender to you. Teach me." And still his grief does not lift. He says, "I see nothing, not an unrivaled kingdom on earth, not sovereignty over the gods themselves, that could remove this sorrow which is drying up my very senses." And then silence. Arjuna tells Krishna, "I will not fight," and he stops speaking. But here is the detail that changes everything. Sanjay says, "Krishna smiled, standing between those two vast armies, looking at this shattered warrior. Krishna gently smiled and began to speak. Not a smile of mockery, a smile of recognition, as if Arjuna's confession of "I don't know" was not the end of wisdom, but its very beginning. Think about what just happened on that battlefield. The greatest archer the world has ever known, a man who could split a fish's eye from its reflection in water, a warrior whose name alone made armies hesitate. Here he stands between two colossal forces, over 1,000,000 soldiers waiting for his signal, and he is weeping. His bow has slipped from his fingers, his skin burns, his mouth is dry, his mind is a storm. Everything he's been taught about duty, honor, and purpose is colliding. He loves the men he's supposed to kill. He reveres the teachers he's meant to defeat. And instead of choosing a side, victory or retreat, Arjuna does something far more courageous. He turns to Krishna and says, "I surrender my pretense. I don't know. Teach me." That admission is not where the Gita ends. It's where it begins. The entire Bhagavad Gita, all 700 verses, all 18 chapters, exists because one man was brave enough to say 3 words. Meera, sitting in that chai shop with tears on her face, didn't know it, but she had just done the very same thing. Meera didn't save her company the next day. Let's be honest about that. She went home that evening and stared at the same spreadsheet. The numbers hadn't changed. The runway was still shrinking. The market didn't care about her emotional breakthrough. But something inside her had shifted. That next Monday, she walked into the conference room, and for the first time, she didn't perform. "I need to be honest with all of you," she said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were not. "I don't have the answers I've been pretending to have. Our situation is harder than I've let on, and I've been so afraid of losing your trust that I stopped trusting you." The room went silent. For a long, terrible moment, silent. And then her lead engineer, a quiet woman named Priya, who'd barely spoken in meetings for months, leaned forward and said, "I've had an idea I've been sitting on for weeks. I didn't bring it up because the way things were going, it didn't feel like there was room to say anything that wasn't already in the plan." One by one, they spoke. Ideas that had been trapped behind the wall of Meera's performed certainty came flooding out. Not all of them were good. Some were entirely impractical. But the room was alive in a way it hadn't been in months. Meera didn't find a perfect answer that day, but she found something far more important. She found her team again, and she found herself, not the version she'd been performing, but the real one. The one who could say, "I don't know," and mean it as an invitation, not a confession of defeat. Mr. Raghavan texted her that evening, just 2 words, "Good start." She smiled. For the first time in months, it was real. Now, Vinas's message may be for you if any of this sounds familiar. You give advice to everyone around you, but secretly, you haven't taken your own in years. Every morning feels like suiting up in armor, not because you're heading to war, but because you can't let anyone see you without it. Someone recently asked, "How are you really?" And you changed the subject so fast, it surprised even you. The thought of saying, "I need help" out loud makes your chest tighten. Not because help isn't available, but because asking feels like proof that you failed. Here is your Gita journal question for today. What is one thing you've been pretending to know that you're finally ready to admit you don't? Sit with that. Don't rush to answer it. And if you're feeling brave, write it in the comments below, not for anyone else, for you. Because sometimes the simple act of writing, "I don't know," is the first step toward actually finding out. And remember this, Krishna didn't begin teaching when Arjuna had the answers. He began teaching when Arjuna finally stopped pretending he did.